Hello everyone, here are the main points in today's video. A surprise attack targeting the command leadership. In the safest, most luxurious area of the Russian command elite. A mocking parade with suicide boats turned a high-level secret meeting into a disastrous, chaotic retreat. A surgical, deadly blow, striking directly at the Kremlin's pride. In the era of hybrid assassins, the Magura unmanned boat is deployed. By turning the Magura boat into a mobile FPV drone launcher to strike deep inland, Ukraine has sparked a revolution in military doctrine. They destroyed a third of the enemy navy without a single traditional warship. The trap from Ankara has locked the Black Sea Fleet in a nightmare. Cut off by the Montreux Convention, they couldn't replace their losses. Russia is helplessly watching Crimea, the unsinkable aircraft carrier. Caught in a logistical stranglehold, they became a lonely island awaiting collapse. A different perspective from Moscow in a possible future scenario. A surgical and dangerous strike, or just a cheap media stunt for propaganda purposes. The pincer movement isolating Crimea, the risk of fierce retaliation, and the fragile fate of the Kerch Bridge in the next phase. Welcome to the analysis program of Luan Ban Qian Su. Before we get into the details, we hope you can take a few seconds to like the video and subscribe to the channel to support the team. Thank you very much, dear audience. Putin is shocked. Ukraine attacks Crimea. Russian command suffers losses. 102 targets neutralized. Ladies and gentlemen, the Crimean Peninsula has just suffered a devastating blow right to its soft underbelly. This lightning raid marks the collapse of the myth of an absolutely safe rear area on the southern coast of Crimea. Previously, the commanders of Russia's Black Sea Fleet had indirectly acknowledged the disadvantage of their surface warships by proactively withdrawing their main vessels to the Novorossiysk base. But now, when the logistics networks and meeting places of the officers have become direct targets right on the civilian coastline, Moscow is being pushed into an extremely difficult strategic dilemma. The unfolding situation began to send out unusual signals on a stifling morning. In the coastal area of Yalta, the local emergency response agency issued an urgent warning, asking people to stay away from the port area due to the risk from unmanned vehicles. By noon, alarm sirens echoed throughout the city, along with an unusually heavy presence of the maritime police force. Right at the parking lot next to the Hungry Bird restaurant, located right by the Yalta coastline, a convoy of 6 luxury black cars with dark-tinted windows quietly gathered. Among them, 2 cars had special military license plates. The remaining 6 cars had no license plates at all. Exactly 8 minutes after this convoy hurriedly left the scene, the entire Yalta area immediately turned into a blazing battlefield. The sound of relentless gunfire echoed throughout the city center for more than an hour as Russian mobile fire teams frantically fired to stop the approaching suicide drones from reaching the port. Low-flying FPV drones hovered in the sky, blending with thick columns of black smoke rising rapidly from the coastline. Although it was difficult to determine whether the fire was caused by an enemy warhead hitting its target or by the panicked defensive forces firing wildly and setting a tourist ship docked at the Hungry Bird restaurant's pier ablaze, the location of the fire sent a very clear message. The area engulfed in red flames lay right next to where the command convoy had just pulled back. Notably, footage recorded from the nose camera of the Ukrainian unmanned boat shows that they smoothly infiltrated right up to the Yalta pier, an area considered one of Russia's most heavily protected waters. The local authorities responded with panic and passivity in crisis management. The coastal area and Primorsky Park were placed on emergency lockdown. Residents were strongly advised not to stand near windows or balconies. The most bitter admission came from Krikov, advisor to the head of the Crimean administration, when he confirmed that at least 1 unmanned device had drifted all the way to the central beach without exploding, forcing the engineering forces to urgently shoot it down. Russian military media channels, such as Archangel of Spetsnaz, quickly identified this as a modified Magura V6 or V7 suicide boat designed to carry an FPV drone. This ironically staged attack was carried out by Unit 13, a special operations unit of the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Directorate, GUR. They deliberately chose the time right before the anniversary of the founding of Yalta City to reenact what they called a naval parade, reminiscent of the tradition from 12 years ago when Ukrainian warships celebrated the Free Coast. The statement of responsibility from GUR, along with the bold phrase, "Crimea is Ukraine," is a sharp psychological warfare move with profound consequences. The exposure of coastal defense gaps has forced the Russian General Staff to disperse their electronic warfare forces and drone hunting teams, which were already limited, across the entire southern coastline. This stretching of resources will inadvertently create deadly gaps, reducing the density of defenses in key land battle zones, while also completely eliminating the safe zones that senior Russian officers once believed were secure for meetings. The raid in Yalta is reminiscent of the daring attack in the heart of Moscow on the birthday of top officials, sending an alarming signal that safe havens for Russia's high-ranking figures are shrinking month by month. The need to disperse meetings, constantly change travel routes, and maximize security forces is like a war tax directly impacting the efficiency of the Supreme Command structure. On the psychological warfare front, the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Directorate's choice to launch the attack during the Yalta anniversary, combined with the ironic language about a parade, dealt a heavy blow to Moscow's image of administrative control in the eyes of the international community. Behind this defining strategic shock is the remarkable evolution of the Magura unmanned naval vehicle and the combat prowess of Unit 13. What began as simple, single-use suicide boats has transformed into a highly modern, multi-dimensional hybrid attack complex through continuous variants from V5, V6 to V7. The most important technological leap demonstrated in the Yalta attack is that Magura is no longer just a floating bomb ramming enemy warships, but has been restructured into mobile launch platforms carrying suicide FPV drones. In this new sea-to-land combat doctrine, the unmanned boats, with extremely low radar cross-sections, can silently approach the coastline without being detected, and from there launch FPV drones to carry out pinpoint strikes on fortified targets on shore, such as command buildings, fortifications, or armored vehicles. This is not a random experiment, but the result of a process of accumulating extensive combat experience. In fact, as early as the end of July, it was Unit 13 that successfully used the algorithm combining Magura and FPV drones, which is part of the Zadar-Portlius system, along with Zadar to identify the enemy Taparan 4, located within Russia's expensive air defense network in Crimea. The combat achievements of Team 13 can be summed up in two words: destruction. In a short period of time, this elite unit deployed Magura platforms, attacked 17 high-value enemy targets, and completely eliminated 15 of them. Their list of victims doesn't stop at patrol boats or landing ships. Even Mi-8 helicopters parked on the deck or flying at low altitude, and even Su-30 fighter jets, which are considered the backbone of Russian air power, have become easy prey for these unmanned executioners. The statement by Ukrainian military intelligence spokesman Mr. Andrei Yusov that the fear of the number 13 has turned into a real obsession for every sailor and Russian coastal commander in the Black Sea is by no means an exaggeration. What's even more remarkable is that the Yalta raid is just one piece of a large-scale operational picture. According to a damage assessment report, over 48 hours released by Mardia, the commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, as many as 102 targets deep within enemy-controlled territory were attacked from August 6 to August 7, including fuel depots and 2 combined facilities. 1 Buk air defense missile system, 3 Shahed drone control relay stations, along with numerous locomotives, city sci-tech vehicles, and communication towers were neutralized. During the same time frame, Special Operations Forces, in coordination with military intelligence, attacked the base of the Russian Federal Security Service, FSB, known as Benya House in the Kherson region, while also striking 10 energy facilities in the Donetsk, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia areas. This entire series of operations shows that the mocking parade in Yalta is just a single note in a grand military symphony. Even the name of the naval operation against Russia's Shadow Fleet, launched in early July, carries the codename Malachka, an abbreviation in Ukrainian with a message that Moscow will fall because of Crimea. It also affirms Kyiv's long-term strategy of gradually turning the Black Sea into a no-go zone for Russian forces. So why Yalta? The choice of Yalta on the vast map of the Black Sea does not stem from a purely military requirement, but is a surgical decision. A place where psychological warfare and symbolism are expertly calculated. Yalta itself is neither a fortified military base like Sevastopol, nor a coastal fortress armed to the teeth. This is the center of luxury, relaxation, and privilege. This is what the Soviet elite, oligarchs, and czars have proudly called Russia's Riviera for centuries. It was right here, in the historic rooms of the Levadia Palace, from February 4 to February 11, 1945, that the three leaders, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin, sat down to redraw the map of the post-World War II world, officially establishing Moscow's position as a global superpower. That historical foundation is exactly the material President Vladimir Putin used in his state addresses to legitimize the 2014 annexation as a return of the sacred land. From the very beginning, Moscow positioned Crimea as an unsinkable aircraft carrier to maintain its military ambitions, turning it into a logistical hub for the Southern Front and a launching point for missile strikes. However, that massive military buildup unintentionally created a deadly blind spot, a neglect of defense in softer, purely touristic areas like Yalta. By delivering direct strikes and shattering the illusion of a completely safe haven, Kiev has exposed the Achilles heel of the so-called unsinkable aircraft carrier, Crimea, a strategic entity that is actually bleeding on all fronts. Turning Yalta, the symbol of imperial power, into a blazing fire in the dark is a classic case of backfiring, striking directly at Vladimir Putin's legacy. The trap from Ankara has locked the Black Sea Fleet tightly in a nightmare. Since activating the Montreux Convention in 1936 to slam the straits shut to warships of warring parties and block the risk of escalation from outside powers, Turkey has unintentionally sealed this sea's fate for more than 4 years now. The price of that resolute decision is extremely harsh. NATO cannot bring naval forces in from outside, but Russia is also completely hopeless in replenishing losses for the Black Sea Fleet from the Baltic or Northern fleets. Every warship taken out by the Magura sea drones is a permanent wound that can never be healed. Turkey's strictness is so severe that even the 2 minesweepers donated to Ukraine by the UK cannot pass through the straits and have to wait indefinitely at the port of Portsmouth. Behind the velvet curtain of diplomacy, secret agreements called Monter Plus between Turkey, Russia, and NATO countries have created a localized, frozen state. But it is precisely within this frozen state that a revolution in military doctrine has quietly taken place. Russia's notorious Black Sea Fleet was forced to flee from its historic base in Sevastopol and retreat to Novorossiysk. As sharply observed by military expert Mikhail Samush, this marks the birth of the 21st century naval force. Ukraine has destroyed 1/3 of the enemy fleet without possessing any traditional warships. While Russia's presence in the Black Sea has been reduced to a disastrous level, a new order is rising strongly from the remaining coastal nations. Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria have established a joint mine countermeasures task group, moving towards the formation of a Black Sea task force with its command center located in Istanbul. 14 countries are providing support, but all warship platforms are handled by the 3 coastal nations. Ankara's doctrine of regional solutions for regional problems has officially turned into a long-term security architecture. This mission was later expanded into regular maritime patrols to protect vital energy infrastructure. From Romania's Neptune deep gas field, Turkey's Sakarya, to Bulgaria's Khan Asparuh, this has been accompanied by a rapid pace of naval modernization. Romania has partnered with the Rheinmetall Group, while Bulgaria has launched domestically built corvettes like Habri and Smelly, and has also acquired a series of mine countermeasure vessels from Belgium and the Netherlands. History is witnessing a profound irony. In the waters that once witnessed the Yalta Order of 1945 shaping the world, the security architecture of 2026 is now being drawn up without any presence of the Russian Navy. The Montreux Convention has locked the door from outside, while Magura strikes cleared the battlefield inside, leaving the Kremlin isolated and unresponsive. Looking to the future, kinetic data on the ground indicates that Ukraine's strategy for Crimea is not a risky traditional naval landing, but rather a pincer movement tightening both logistically and psychologically, causing the peninsula to become exhausted and collapse on its own. In the short term, with the upgraded ability of Magura and CBP boats to carry FPV drones, deep raids on coastal radar stations, electronic jamming towers, and command centers will occur with increasing frequency. When the transportation lifeline across the Kerch Strait, already weakened after previous intense raids, continues to be put under pressure by a new, large-scale attack campaign using unmanned vehicles. Hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers and civilians on Crimea now face a real threat of being completely isolated in a suffocating stranglehold. Not stopping at the Sevastopol coastal area, the next generations of unmanned suicide boats, with extended range and increased combat payload, are ready to expand their strike radius, directly penetrating the Novorossiysk base located right on Russian soil. However, the dark side of this asymmetric warfare equation is the risk of fierce retaliation and unpredictable military escalation from an opponent pushed into a corner. Russian sources claim that this is not a real military victory, but merely a cheap media stunt serving the propaganda purposes of the Kiev government. A desperate attempt to send the message, "We are still capable of striking," to Western sponsors, while also trying to disrupt the tourist season on the peninsula. The fact that official reports did not record any casualties further strengthens Moscow's argument that the attack was a complete tactical failure. From any perspective, the series of events that took place on the coast of Yalta on August 7, 2026, will still go down in world military history as a turning point, marking a permanent change in naval warfare doctrine. The fact that a country without a true traditional navy was able, in just a few years, to force one of the oldest and most formidable naval empires in history to strain itself defending hundreds of kilometers of coastline. The small fiberglass boats controlled via satellite are the pinnacle of modern asymmetric warfare. So in your view, between Ukraine and Russia, who is lying?